All right, let's keep this train moving here. Hour 2. Let's continue to dive into this Packers-Vikings matchup. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Hit that like button if you don't care. Feel free to sub to the channel. We appreciate y'all making us a part of your morning here as we're dissecting this whole thing. Let's look at the Packers' defensive side of the ball here, and hopefully all these guys will be on the field. I'm trying to get a glance to see if PFF may have overlooked something because sometimes they do throw things a little wonky. They got
look, there's the nickel personnel I was looking for here.
This is what they suggest. And again, this is because PFF has Zane Anderson graded so high, right? Some people see this and they roll their eyes. I love it. Again, it's so rare that you see a player grade out that high and then all of a sudden they just revert back to being absolutely horrible, right? Or, not even a starting caliber player. I'm with you, Tim. If Bullard plays, this is the direction I'm leaning, because if you go opposite of this and you put Bullard in Zane Anderson's place, we know Nixon plays worse in the slot than he does on the outside, right? Maybe it's not too much of a difference, but I think we would all agree that it seems like Nixon is more comfortable on the outside than he is on the inside. Now, if you can call a nickel fire every play, yeah, he's good to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he is, in my opinion, our best slot defender. But I think he is better at playing the slot than Bullard is. I truly believe that. But the issue is Nixon has played on the outside better than the slot. So if you put Bullard in the slot, Nixon on the outside, Valentine on the opposite side, and you keep Zane Anderson in there at safety, man, along with McKinney. What if Zane Anderson, Tim, what if they go with this look as Zane Anderson comes out Sunday and just balls out, grades out in the 80s again?
That's what we want to see. Let's go. I hope he does. I hope he keeps performing well, because none of us were, I think, expecting or prepared for that.
I know I wasn't.
Yeah. I think we saw him as a special team guy, right? A Rich Bisaccia guy, hard player, plays hard, but I was not prepared for him playing at the level he's been playing at, opposite of McKinney back there as a safety. And with Evan Williams going down and, we may have a bona fide backup right there for him. I think we've talked about him coming down in the box a few times. We've got that on tape against New Orleans. But I don't know if Zane Anderson has that ability to play both safety and slot corner. I think Bullard does. And I think Nixon's got the versatility, like you talked about, between slot and boundary. But if you take Zane Anderson out of this lineup, where else does he go on the field? I don't think he does. If you got Bullard back there at safety, then you're looking at Eric Stokes Jr. as your starting boundary corner in the nickel. And I just think this lineup right here looks a little bit more advantageous for our defense.
Yeah, I agree. And many people were already saying, hey, will Zane be back next year? Will Zane be back next year? Unfortunately, he's an unrestricted free agent. So Goody and them is going to have to make a decision. What's the number we put on him? He made $1 million this year. Okay, that's what his salary cap hit is, against the cap, against the, as far as the accounting aspect goes with the Packers. Will he drive up the market in free agency? Not based off of one game, right? So it's I could see it being something, Tim, that if he balls out the rest of the year, we end up bringing him back on a contract similar to what Keyshawn got.
Oh yeah,
average 6 year, $5 to $6 million per year, with the first year being much lower at $3 to $4 million a hit. But
there's got to be a reason we haven't seen KT Oladapo thrown into the mix back there.
This makes sense now, doesn't it?
Yep,
it does. Because we were all like, man, where's Ola Home Depot at? It sounded like Zane Anderson been balling out in practice. And you guys remember in camp, I believe it was, he was actually, everybody was joking. Is he a real person? I didn't know he's a real person. He's talking about him picking passes off and everything. Yep. It sounds like he is definitely leapfrogged Oladapo. And that's the other thing too. Like you've got your starters. We all would agree that it's going to be Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams as your starting safeties when Evan's healthy, right? So you look at how your safety room is built. You got Katana Oladapo, 3 years left on his deal after this year, right? So you've got him. He's obviously the future is what you're looking at, at the safety position. You got Omar Brown, who's sitting on the practice squad, who probably get reset to a 2-year deal with the futures contract. So your safety room, you got Javon Bullard, obviously, who's going to be able to play safety if you get a little banged up. You're going into the offseason, you don't have to re-sign Zane Anderson. You don't have to overpay for that. But again, if the market isn't there, why not bring him back? He's 27 years old, So you got a couple years before he kind of hits that wall we always talk about, right? So there you go. Prince just pointed out Zane turns 28 next month. So, yeah, you don't want to overpay for good. You'll overpay for great, but you don't want to overpay for good. And you damn sure don't want to overpay for good when your safety room is already looking pretty good, And it does seem like we have fixed that this year.
That's what makes Goody such a genius, right? I mean, this is the type of position you want to be in. You're right. We absolutely don't. We don't have to feel like we need to sign Zane Anderson again, right? But we could. Right. We could. Right. I mean, you talk about Williams, you talk about Bullard, we talk about Oladapo, Omar Brown, all these guys on rookie deals that we don't have to worry about immediately right now. Mm-hmm. I think there's a possibility. The thing I'm not prepared for with him being, you said he's unrestricted free agent, right? Zane?
That is correct. Yeah, he'll hit the market.
If he balls his ass off these next few games, I think it's a pretty good chance he's gone in free agency. Someone will probably snatch him up,
One thing about it, Zane is looking at this like, boy, you don't wish for a teammate to get hurt, don't get me wrong, but the fact that he's getting significant playing time going into his free agent year is huge. It's absolutely huge.
It is.
To be able to kind of audition to a team, hey, look, I can give you a stopgap for a couple years,
Yeah. And it's nice for us to be in this position, with Williams being out. We don't have to sit here and play musical chairs, right. At the safety spot and start moving guys around and, hey, who can play back there? Let's grab one of these rookies that's not ready and throw them into the fire as we make a playoff push. I mean, we've seen the Packers of days past with terrible secondaries and having to just constantly move guys around into places that they're not comfortable. This gives us the advantage that, we got guys that we can put in spots to be successful. You've talked about Coach Hafley doing that, wanting guys to play where they feel comfortable and being able to do the things that they're good at in their game. And I think Zane Anderson stepping up is just right place, right time, and we need it, right? Great timing.
Yeah, Ron Sample makes a great point here. He says, I'm not really comfortable with Bullard in the slot against this team, just my opinion. Here's the thing. Javon Bullard, 53.7, right? You guys know I haven't been like on the table for Bullard this year. Like he's having a great year. I don't think he's having a great year. I always try to point out what players can do as opposed to what they can't do. He's a solid run defender. It gives you it's almost like an extra edge defender there when you're playing your nickel against the run where a lot of teams like to run out of 11 personnel. That's his strength. Coverage is not his strength at the NFL level yet. It may take some time. So I completely understand where you're coming from here, Ron. Now the question becomes, who would you rather have on the field at this moment? Would you rather kick Nixon to the slot? Okay. And obviously we've talked about it that Nixon has played better on the boundary this year. But if you kick him to the slot, then it comes down to who would you rather have on the field, Stokes or Bullard, right? Stokes is coming off of his two best games. Tim, we've talked about it a lot.
Yep.
So if your argument, Ron, is let's don't play Bullard, he's banged up, let's put Nixon in the slot, put Stokes on the outside because Stokes is on a heater right now, I can't argue with that. I don't think that's a horrible move either because the reality is Bullard has not been great. He's not been great in coverage. He hasn't. Now, the fact that a rookie is playing that many snaps, you want to see him crack that 60 mark on PFF. That's kind of that indicator that, hey, this dude is the real deal. As a rookie, he's going to be able to compete. He's going to get better. That's typically the gauge you use. But, when you face a team like the Vikings, and this is what Ron was saying, like this matchup here specifically, the Vikings throw the ball 58% of the time. So if you're going to be throwing the ball more, you're not maximizing that player in the slot's ability to stop the run, right? It doesn't mean they're not going to run the ball, especially if they jump up to an early lead. But just kind of thinking out loud here, I can understand where Ron's coming from there, too.
I think the Packers are thinking the same thing, too. And, we're talking about one other glaringly obvious fact that we've kind of forgot about is Bullard's coming off of injury. So, if they throw him in a lineup and he starts in the slot and he gets cooked, I mean, you watch how quick Keyshawn's into the slot, Stokes is on the boundary, Anderson stays back there, and Bullard's on the sideline. That could be a realistic possibility against a team like Minnesota, who we know can move the ball through the air. Because you're right. I mean, Bullard's strength is that downhill hammer in the run game, So if he's getting cooked in the slot, I could see them without hesitation making a change, especially the way Stokes has been playing. Like you said, coming off his best two games, I don't think they'd hesitate at all to just put him out on the field, move Keyshawn into that slot.
Yeah. On a separate tab here, I pulled up Eric Stokes' grade. He's up to a 61.5 now this year, according to PFF. He's the 110th graded cornerback out of 217. His coverage grade is a 62.8. That, in terms of coverage grade, 93rd best corner out of 217. So he's a legit top 100 corner.
So he's grading high, probably as high as he ever has in his career, other than his rookie year, right?
I think so. Yeah. I was trying to. They changed everything up here to where they make it really difficult to see the players' rankings over their career unless you're looking at the screen that we were looking at with the preview here. They tried to make it more sleek, and me being the get off my lawn guy, every time somebody changes something, I want to pull my damn hair out. It's like, you guys had it right. Please stop changing things. But I was trying to look at him in preview. Yeah, let's see here in premium stats. I know you guys can't see this, but I'll read it off to you. So his PFF grades this year, let's just go back his last 5 weeks. Okay, Tim, let's start in week 12. 47.8, 69.7, 60.1, 77.8, 80.6. So 80.6, hands down, his highest graded game of the year, no doubt about it. His overall grades throughout his career, you were right. Rookie year, 65.5. 2022, 53.7. 2023 is a 51.5. And then this year, a 61.5. So he's definitely playing his best ball since his rookie year. So, if you were to just say, all right, PFF's everything, and we're not saying that, please don't send any hateful emails to me, okay? You guys know how we feel about this. But he's definitely grading out significantly higher than Javon Bullard this year. So if Keyshawn can handle the slot, and again, we showed you the slot wide receiver for the Vikings, Naylor. Listen, he's not a world beater. He's one of the worst receivers in the league that meets the minimum requirements here. But it's just that motion they like to use with Addison and Jefferson to get them in that slot position there. That's going to make things interesting.
Yeah, and don't think for a second that they wouldn't flex Jefferson into the slot just to cook, a rookie slot corner.
Right.
They would take that opportunity. I wouldn't put it past them.
And what you're pointing out here, Tim, obviously with Javon Bullard, he's listed as questionable, right?
Yeah, we don't even know for sure if he's going to go.
Yeah. And again, if you're the coaching staff and you look at this going, man, Stokes has got some serious momentum. Is this the week that we put Keyshawn in the slot, put Stokes on the outside, let Bullard rest another week? I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That's probably what we'll see, to be honest with you.
We talk about the hot hand, right? Like if Stokes is catching fire here, do you want to kill that momentum? Yeah. I want to get the best ball out of this guy we can, especially since it's not a guarantee that he's going to be a Packer next year. It's probably more than likely that he's not.
You also got to take into consideration too, man. You're one injury away. If somebody gets banged up, they twist an ankle and they're going to miss the rest of the game. Who is the next safety to come in, right? And how does that upset the cart? Does Bullard kick out if he is playing, right? Let's say Anderson gets banged up and he has to come out of the game. You throw Bullard up there, then who's the cornerback that's coming in? It's going to be Stokes, right? Yep. If Bullard is not playing and you got Keyshawn in the slot already, Stokes on the outside, who's that other safety that steps in? It's got to be Oladapo, right? Got to be.
I would think. Otherwise, we're playing the game that we just said we don't want to play, right? We're talking about, do we move Keyshawn back there, right? Do we bring in Ballantyne and have Ballantyne play the slot or play on the boundary? Do you move Key to the safety position? Do you move Zane down into the slot? Do we start experimenting in real time against the Vikings? I'm not looking for that. I'd rather lean on our trusted guys, Yeah,
it could be something too. If Bullard's activated, right, and he's going to be active on Sunday, don't start him. Have him kind of waiting. You know what I mean? And in case you get into trouble, hey, you could pop him in. And who knows, you jump out to a 1 or a 2 score lead and you got everything in hand. You can kind of not try to, push him too far there with the injury. Prince in the chat says 3 p.m. We should see if Omar Brown is called up again. And if he is called up, pretty good indication, I would imagine, that our boy Javon Bullard is not going to be active. I could see that happening for sure.
Yep,
so thank you for that, Prince. We'll keep an eye on that as the day goes along. Let's shift our focus to the front four here. Rashawn Gary, 73.3 is the highest graded defensive lineman here on the team. They've got Kingsley Nigbare opposite of Rashawn Gary at a 62.0. You guys know LVN seems to have taken that starting role opposite of Rashawn Gary, but there is a heavy rotation. So you're going to continue to see Brenton Cox Jr. as well. I'm going to pull up in a separate tab here and see what Brenton Cox Jr.'s grades are and kind of get an idea of where he's at right now because I think he's playing his best ball. I think we would all agree. And if you look at the premium stats right now, he's up to a 75.3 in 2024. He's now had 2 games where he graded, we'll just call it an 80 because it's a 79.9 in week 12 against the 49ers. And then in week 16, this past week against New Orleans, at 88.7. Been solid this year, man. Since week 11, he's gotten significant snaps. When you look at his total snaps, 10, starting week 11, 22, 22, 20, 21, 20, 26 in week 16. So Brenton Cox Jr., if you were going strictly off a grade, and I like that PFF doesn't do that because it does kind of mislead people into thinking, oh, he's the starter when he's probably not. They're probably going off a combination of grade and snap count, and we know Enigbare's played a lot of football this year. But boy, Brenton Cox Jr. opposite of Rashawn Gary ain't too far away, man. I could see that. If he continues what he did last week and the week before, he could end up winning that job opposite. Now, here's the thing, too. LVN, now he's closing in on 12% pressure rate. That dude's playing his best ball right now, too, which is wild to think about.
This makes the Preston Smith trade to Pittsburgh look even better, right? I mean, seriously, if you don't have faith in this front office, I don't know what you're watching, because that was a move that benefited both Preston Smith personally and professionally, and it certainly benefited the Green Bay Packers and these young edge guys that we have. That you're right, they got to see the field. They do. And having a lot of talent and trying to find out how to get them all on the field is a good problem to have. And it's even better when all these guys are starting to pop and they're starting to do more than flash. We always talk about young players flashing. Brenton Cox Jr. and LVN are starting to creep up, man, right where we want them to be.
And again, LVN's PFF grade this year is only a 53, but keep in mind, like, the improvement throughout the year. Let's just start.
He's trending upwards, right? We're not there yet, but we're on the right path.
He hit his ceiling in week 12 against the Niners, 82.9. His lowest game of the year was week 6, where he was a 30. So you've seen that improvement. And then since that 82.9, he's graded out starting in week 13, 68.9, 68.4, 61.8, 61. So you're seeing the floor has been raised for LVN. You got a ceiling of 82.9. You got a floor of 30. But if you go over the last 5 games, that floor is now a 61. So you're seeing that improvement for sure in his game the more reps he gets. And when you look at his reps, I don't know if he got banged up against New Orleans or maybe they took him out because it was a blowout and they wanted to see a little more of Brenton Cox Jr. on the field. But his snap count over the last 4 games is 22, 35, 25, 18. I'd say it has something to do with that, the fact that they were blowing him out. But again, play the hot hand, man,
Yep.
So
absolutely. It's like Emilio's hockey line quote, right? You got to try and switch these guys and rotate. And, I'm pretty sure snap counts they're looking at post game, right? They're probably not looking at that super close during the game. I think they're worried more about, what they're trying to execute. And, you see personnel, sometimes a guy will wave himself off, right? You get popped or you're, a little out of breath or something, get shaken up. Sometimes you're waving towards the sideline. So I don't think there's anyone standing there going, no, you have to stay on the field. You need your 11th snap. I don't think they're looking at that. They're probably looking at snap counts, maybe at half, and then probably for sure after the game. You'll see LaFleur asked about that a lot in his post-game pressers. And a lot of times he's like, yeah, I don't have those numbers in front of me yet. I'm sure that's something that they're kind of looking at after the fact. But it is cool to see, the fluctuation, because there are games when guys, especially when you're talking about, LVN, Cox, and Enigbare, you'll see the fluctuation in their snap counts. But, the fact of the matter is they need to see the field. So I don't care if they fluctuate in their snap totals, as long as they're on that field and put in a place where they have a chance to be successful. And we're seeing that right now.
Yeah. And with Enigbare, it's worth mentioning, listen, his PFF grades is 62. He started off strong. In week 3, 92.9. In week 5, 84.4, right? And, you got some 40s and 30s in between. But again, if we just go recent bias right here, you've got the last 5 games, his floor is a 49.9 and his ceiling is a 70.7 over the last 5 games. So for what it's worth, the hot hand right now is definitely Brenton Cox Jr. The steady hand is Lucas Van Ness over the last 5 games. Kingsley seems to have cooled off a little bit here down the stretch.
Can we talk about him for a second?
Who's that?
Kingsley Enagbare, because I don't know if I'm maybe reading into this wrong, but he's kind of been a penalty issue these past few weeks.
Let's look at that, man. Yeah, I think you're right. Let's
am I off base there? It seems like there, when it comes to those edge guys, that's the guy that's getting flags thrown on him probably the most of the
He's got 6 on the year so far. Okay. So he's got 6 penalties. LVN has 5 penalties, and Brenton Cox Jr., obviously playing far fewer snaps, has 1 penalty.
Okay.
So, I mean, honestly, though, if you averaged it out and you doubled, hell, even tripled Brenton Cox Jr.'s penalties, all you'd have to do is double to get the same amount of games played. Brenton Cox Jr., the guy that we talk about as the most undisciplined of the pass rushers, actually been the one with the least amount of penalties.
Crazy.
And that's between Enagbare, LVN, and Brenton Cox Jr. So, yeah, man, that's a great point, Tim. He's definitely, and that's probably why his PFF grade is kind of hovering a little lower,
Yeah.
But it's because the penalty. I'm pretty sure they penalize pretty harshly. I've been told multiple things, and of course PFF won't talk to you about it. They're just, hey, no, we ain't going to show you our recipe. So it's interesting how that.
And I think we can probably snag 1 or 2 of those penalties away from Enagbare just with the ticky tack factor, right? The old questionable call factor. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of times with him, it's the that whatever that is, the roughing the passer, the phantom roughing the passer call or something like that.
Right.
I don't want to pick on JJ Enagbare, but I do. I'm glad you pulled that up because I had a feeling he was the most penalized of our edge guys. So hopefully he tightens up, man, going forward.
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's look at the linebackers, man. This has been what a pleasant surprise here with Edgerrin Cooper. Obviously, when you look at the projected starting lineup for this game, you got our boy Edgerrin Cooper, an 80.0, the 6th highest graded linebacker in the league. And then, of course, you've got Eric Wilson, who will probably be wearing the green dot again, I would imagine, a 68.3. He's graded now as a 29th best linebacker. I just pulled Isaiah McDuffie up on a separate window here. His PFF grade this year is a 56.5. I mean, his entire career, 60, 58.6, 57.1, 56.5. So we know what he is, right? We know what Zay McDuffie is. If you look at the last 5 games, he has peaked at a 64, and his floor is a 55. So you're not going to get like crazy high, crazy low. You kind of know what you got. But, man, Edgerrin Cooper, holy cow, Tim. This dude, buddy. He is something else, man.
I'll tell you what Zay McDuffie is. Zay McDuffie is probably not a Packer after this year.
Right. Yep. I completely agree. And the fact that he can contribute on special teams too is obviously going to give you a lot more value there as well. I'm going to pull up Tyron Hopper real quick too. You go ahead. Any comments you got? I'm going to see.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm not saying that as a knock on Zay McDuffie. Anyone who's followed our show in the last year or so knows that I'm a huge Zay McDuffie fan. I like the way that he plays football. I really do. I like the way he approaches the game. He's a thumper. He really is. But he's not as versatile as some of our other linebackers. And I also think the absolute explosion of Edgerrin Cooper, and then the Tyron Hopper effect, if we can get him taking the steps he needs to get to that next level and be a rotational guy. And we look at Quay, maybe he can heal up and continue to play good football, because let's be real, before the injury, Quay was playing his best ball. And, we have a potential for a really fast, aggressive, physical, young linebacking core. And I just think, if you look at the contracts, if you're going to bring any of our, older or more veteran type linebackers back, I think you do. I think you do a 1 or 2 year deal to a guy like Eric Wilson before you try and bring, Zay McDuffie back. I think Zay McDuffie would probably command a decent contract on the market. And I don't think the Packers are going to exceed that. They may match an offer and give him the option to stay, but I don't know. I don't see the Packers being super aggressive pursuing McDuffie in free agency. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah. And Quay Walker, just to hit on him real quick, his season-long grade, 57.5. So throughout his career, And this is why there's some people that try to downgrade what Edgerrin Cooper's doing, and they're like, well, Quay did that his rookie year. No, he didn't. Quay was a 52 his rookie year. He went up to a 58.7 last year, a 57.5 in 2024. Now, to Tim's point, playing some of his best ball here of lately, his last 5 games, he graded out a 62.6, 91.4, 91.4, 68.5, 62.2, and then against Seattle, a 44.2. But keep in mind, we've seen him dragging that leg on a couple plays. So it's like he was playing. Obviously, something happened with that ankle, and he still got in a play or two after that. So he didn't play his best game against Seattle. So over the last 5 games, his floor would be a 44.2, but his ceiling's a 91.4. So again, Edgerrin Cooper, though, I will mention, Quay may have, I think he tied or set the Packers' rookie tackle record. There's a difference in depth of tackle, right?
Right.
And, like when you look at actual run stops as opposed to just tackles, Edgerrin Cooper's an absolute menace, man. He is something else. So, going to be interesting to see what they do there next year in terms of how they attack the linebacking room. Obviously, Quay Walker's going to be back next year. He's under contract. Will they pick up the 5th-year option on him and Wyatt? That's going to be the big question. We've talked about that all year long. But yeah, Tim, that 91, man, he looked like he just looked like he was being decisive in that game. He really did.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about with Quay, right? Like, let him just play with his hair on fire. Let him just go out there and be, instinctive and just trust himself. Like, you see that, especially in the run fits, really. We always know Quay's a good coverage guy, right? When it comes to, he's probably our best cover linebacker, honestly. Mm-hmm. But, man, has he gotten better in the run fits and even in the pressures, right? We talked about him getting those, like Jacob always says, the happy feet. You instead of start, stop, shoot, you start, stop, shuffle your feet, right. And then you shoot. And then by the time you shoot, you're in the wrong gap and you're getting washed out of the play. We're seeing a lot less of that from Quay. We're seeing start, stop, shoot, trust it, go. And, we've seen sacks based off of the type of penetration that Quay has gotten on some of those looks. We've seen a Devontae Wyatt sack. We saw a Kenny Clark sack this year with Quay just being aggressive, trusting it, and going. That's how Cooper plays all the time, right? We see that. That guy just, every time he's on the field, plays like that. There's no hesitation. So I think maybe some of that is from that rookie season from Quay being thrown into the fire so quickly. Drake Campbell had the green dot that year, obviously, but, we put Quay on the field immediately as a rookie. And, I think that was a lot for him to process, especially in a semi-confusing Joe Barry defense that he had to play in where, guys were kind of going rogue and there was a little bit of confusion. There wasn't as much communication. There certainly wasn't an aggressive nature of rally to the ball carrier. It was more about, stay in your spot, remember your assignments, remember the variables. I think Hafley has kind of simplified things and he caters to his players' strengths and puts them in a place to be successful. And I think that's why you're seeing, here in year 3, you're seeing Quay with the steps forward towards that high ceiling that we know he has. It's just unfortunate with the injury, man. It really is.
Yeah. So when you look at Edgerrin Cooper, grading out of 80, week 1, 85.9, only 11 snaps. Think about this. Week 2, Indianapolis, only 7 snaps. Week 3 went to 18, 21, 30, 38, 41, 34, 38. Week 11, 51 snaps. Week 15, 34. And then week 16, 38. Now, when you look at his ceiling on the year, his highest graded game was against Seattle at a 93.8. His lowest graded game of the year was a 34.4. Okay.
Worth noting that the high grade in Seattle was also the highest in the National Football League, if I'm not mistaken, that week.
Correct. So you've got a floor season long rookie year for Edgerrin Cooper, a floor of 34.4, but a ceiling of 93.8. Now, again, that was the only game where he graded out in the 30s. He only had one game where he graded out in the 40s. So if you remove 2 of those 16 games that he has in his rookie campaign here, right, then his floor would be 53.9. His ceiling would be 93.8. Now let's look over the last 5 weeks. How's he settling in the last 5 weeks? His floor is a 53.9 against Chicago there in week 11, and his ceiling is a 93.8. So this is what I'm talking about when I've heard people say, hey, Quay, he reminds me of Quay his rookie year. No, go back and watch the tape again. This is special what Edgerrin Cooper's doing, man. It really is. And again, if you look at his overall grades on the year, defensively 80.0, run defense 66.9, tackle grades of 57.7, pass rush 90.1, and his coverage grade 76.4. According to PFF, his strengths are rushing the quarterback and playing coverage. What the hell? This is a different kind of animal. He can do it all. He can do it all for sure. So, and it's crazy too, because you see that tackle grade of 57.7, Tim. I don't watch the game and go, man, Edgerrin Cooper can't tackle. I just don't see that at all, bro. I don't know what they've seen on tape with the tackle grade.
Yeah, and I love what you said about like a run stop versus like, a tackle. You see guys all the time, they meet you right there, point of contact, and then, like you get your face ran through and it's another 3 yards, you're going backwards. You see Edgerrin Cooper, man, that man, he gets his hands on you. Your momentum is stopped. I think he's underrated as a tackler. And the coolest thing about Cooper is you see a rookie, I don't care what position you're in, they come out their rookie year like this and they play absolute balls to the wall, hair on fire football. There's a tendency to think, oh boy, here's that flash in the pan, right? Here's that great rookie year. Is he going to sustain this, next year and beyond in his career? And I think with Edgerrin Cooper, you have zero concern about that. This guy is legit. That's why some people are jumping the gun with the LT comparisons and all these things. It's because he just jumps off the tape. And when he's on the field, he's one of those guys that just looks like a beast among men. It looks like he's out there playing with a bunch of high schoolers or something. The game is just not too big for him. And he really does. He stands out on tape when he's on the field.
Yeah, I completely agree. Eric Wilson is taking kind of a downturn here. Okay. So started off the season. First of all, his highest graded game was only 8 snaps. It was against Indianapolis at 99.4. That's when he had that interception. And we started screaming, we need to get him more snaps. Yeah. So that's his highest graded game. His lowest graded game is a 38.6 in week 9 against Detroit. Okay. And we've seen that all over tape. He really struggled. If we go over to the last 5 game saturation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, his floor in the last 5 games is a 43.8. His ceiling is a 75.4. So that's why his PFF grade is now down to a 68.3. Now it is worth mentioning wearing that green dot. It matters, right? Like he took over wearing the green dot when Quay left in the Seattle game, right? He graded out 62.6. Last week was the first week where he wore the green dot, like for the full game, 51.6. I think there's something to that, Tim, that when you're wearing the green dot, it's not just about playing linebacker.
You got a big, gigantic bag full of other responsibilities, right?
Absolutely. Man.
You're analyzing protections. You're looking at adjustments pre-snap. You're looking at that offense and their sugar. You're trying to communicate to your other backers. You may even be leaning over your shoulder, looking at your secondary, trying to communicate with X on the back end. It's a lot of real-time moving pieces when you're wearing that green dot. I think that I'll be honest with you. I think there's as much or more pressure on a linebacker wearing a green dot as there is to a quarterback wearing the green dot.
Yeah, really. I don't think there's anything inaccurate about that, man, to be honest with you. Let's look at the defensive line real quick as we wrap up. Kenny Clark, 59.2. He's the 56th highest graded defensive lineman that meets the criteria. Devontae White, 64.3. He's 43rd. So, again, Kenny Clark having a down year. There's no doubt about it. We've seen him occupying double teams a lot. He's playing a lot of 1-tech. It's rare you see him in a 3-tech. And he's also doing a lot of that occupy the double team, play a little touch spy. So keep that in mind. That's definitely you're probably going to get a -2 if they're grading the tape the way I think PFF is grading the tape. They're going to see that touch spy and they're going to give him a -2 because it looks like, wow, he didn't even try to rush the quarterback. Yeah, he's not trying to rush the quarterback, knucklehead. He's playing a touch spy because he's already occupying a double team. Now, when it comes to Wyatt 64.3, I feel like that's trending in the right direction. I pulled up TJ Slayton because I'm like, man, how's TJ Slayton played? His PFF grade on the year is down to a 43.9, which is crazy because when you look at the pressure rate and how he's played according to next-gen stats with GPS tracking, run stops, all that, he's one of the top defensive linemen. So I don't know what PFF sees here on tape when it comes to TJ Slayton, but they've got him grading out absolutely horrible.
I don't think PFF knows what they're seeing on tape with TJ.
When it comes to
he's playing his best ball in the last 2 years for sure right now.
Yeah. And it's crazy because last year he graded out a 62.3, this year a 43.9. And that game against New Orleans, he only played 17 snaps, but they had him at a 35.3. Now,
I think you're onto something. I think maybe their analytics, they're not taking into account, what we're trying to do with that front. Right. Like guys' assignments on a play. If his job is to occupy somebody and not get pressure versus getting pressure, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, it's why we always say PFF isn't everything. It's just another tool we can use. But I really do feel like TJ Slayton's having a better year than what PFF is suggesting. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. That's where he is sitting. And I was going to look up, who was the other one? Carl Brooks was the other one I want to look up. Let me pull up his numbers real quick. I want to see how Carl Brooks is grading out according to
this guy right here.
That guy right there, that grinning menace. So he on the year of 58.0, last year he was a 69.8. Let's see what we got here over the last 5 games. His ceiling has been a 70.8. His floor has been a 47.1. On the year against Arizona, he was a 93.0. And his worst graded game of the year was a 32.8 against Detroit in Week 9. He only played 15 snaps there. But the snap count is the big thing to me, Tim. Over the last 5 weeks, 5 weeks, here's his snap count: 20, 26, 25, 27, 28. So Carl Brooks is seeing the field much more often. There's no two ways about that. And again, you can take the PFF grade with a grain of salt. You can look at the next-gen stats, but the true assessment of a player is when a coach puts their ass on the field more, it tells you they see something in that player. These coaches aren't just going to march someone out there knowing that their job's on the line, right? They see something in Carl that they really like what he's doing. And it's almost like his grades are coinciding with Kenny Clark's, which I would love to look at the tape and see how often Kenny Clark and Carl Brooks are on the field at the same time. I'm wondering if they have Carl Brooks playing Kenny's role when Kenny comes off the field for a spell. I could see that being something similar, and that's why their grades are so similar from PFF standpoint too, because they're right there together, 58 and a 59.2.
It's like Carl K saying in the chat, right? Sitting on the bench molds the butt. Play on the field molds the brain. I love it. Yeah. Right? You gotta get out there, man. You gotta throw them out there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Let's go to the chat real quick as we get ready to wrap up. Prince in the chat says Enigbare has a nasty streak, which I like, but it's going to bottom coming in at the whistle, jumping on the pile, etc. He has gotten away with a couple. He has, Prince. I completely agree, man. And when he comes in, Tim, and I see him do that whole let's just jump on the pile at the end, oh, my God. Or like against Caleb Williams, you remember against Chicago, he had him dead to rights, and for whatever reason, he decided he's going to jump up like a damn tiger and try to land. It's like, bro, you're not going to find one fraction of a second of practice footage showing where a coach said, here's what I want you to do, Enigbare. Go in there and leave your feet and jump on top of the guy. It's not a real thing. So That's where Mike Wall would say, I don't know what they're coaching over there, because he said that a time or 12 for sure.
Absolutely. I agree with that. That's totally what I was thinking with him, right? He's a firebrand and you love it, but at the same time, you want to kind of harness that, right? Kind of get him focused and not doing the crazy extra stuff.
Definitely. Prince goes on to say, still impressed with Enigbare's recovery from that knee injury. Hasn't hampered him through the season. You that's one thing. It's a great point, Prince. You never look up and think, man, that knee looks like it's bothering him. He's going 100 mile an hour every snap. So
I remember how excited we were when we found out it wasn't a full, I think it wasn't a full ACL tear or whatever it was. And that's been a pleasant surprise. And you're right, it's not holding them back at all.
Yeah. Ron Samble in the chat said, Wilson had a rough time in coverage last game against the Vikings. Does the Mike have to be the linebacker that drops back in Tampa too? It's not that simple. It's not, okay, the Mike always drops or the Will always drops. It depends on the formation the offense comes out, and it depends on what the defensive play call is. The point is they both have to be able to do it. So, in that case, treat it like he does have to be the guy who's always dropping in Tampa too. So that might be a weak spot. Now, we'll happily scheme around it. Probably, right? Maybe we don't run as much Tampa 2 knowing that, because you're going to have a significant amount of snaps where Wilson is going to have to cover the seam, right? Now, if it's Edgerrin Cooper covering the seam, turn that dog loose. But again, you can't just go out there and go, you're covering the seam. You can, but it makes your defense very predictable. That's where you'll see the offense come to the line. They'll use a little pre-snap motion and shift to see what you're in. And when they see a guy motion over and a guy does not follow him, everybody knows that means it's zone coverage, right? But when you motion him over and you see the linebacker switch, not necessarily covering him, but switch, that's the tip. That dude who switched, who's going with the three, who's cheating toward the three now, the number 3 receiver, he's probably the guy who's going for it on a match principle. So that's how you can identify those things. If you see those backers switch in this game significantly with the motion, not necessarily walk out and play them square up man-to-man, then no, we designated one of those linebackers as the deep guy. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them come out in a tray right look or a tray left look. Let's say it's tray right for simplicity here. And you motion that Y over to the left to make it tray left out of a normal, or actually just to make it a dub set. If you motion him over and you see Edgerrin Cooper switch, then you probably identified Edgerrin Cooper's the guy who's predominantly going to be covering the seam. I don't like that approach. If you're on the field, you need to be able to do everything. And you shouldn't if you get to the point where you're going, he can't do that, so let's mold our whole defense around not letting him do that. Now you got yourself in trouble. You should give him that extra rep to try to make up for the bad one he made 3-4 weeks ago, whenever it was, or in this case, all the way back in September with Minnesota. So hopefully that makes sense, Ron. But I like where you're thinking there, man. It's like that's the stuff you want to look for. There's a difference between following him all the way over and backer switching. Now, if they don't switch, if they use that motion, if you see them motion Hawkinson over out of that tray look into a dub set or out of a dub set into a tray look, and you just see the backers slightly shift over, but they don't change places, then you know they're trusting both of them to be able to do each assignment. So, all right, Tim, we got anything else, man? Anything else you want to hit on? I know we went over a little bit.
No, I think we've got everybody in the chat for the most part.
Cool. Yeah, hey, listen, the chat was on fire today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us here on this Saturday morning. I want to give a special shout out to Miss Jerry Weiss Corbley for becoming a YouTube member. We'll make sure we get you into the giveaway tomorrow. It is going to be an autographed Dorsey Levens jersey. This is one of the rare white jerseys we have.
Ooh, let's go.
Beckett. So it's got the numbers embroidered and everything. It looks a lot like an authentic NFL jersey. It's signed. We have the authenticity ticket there with it. It's going to be Dorsey Levens, obviously from the 90s Packers.
Love it.
Went on their run. So that's what we're going to be giving away, the away white autographed Dorsey Levens jersey. If you're a member on YouTube like Jerry Weiss Corbley, or you're a member in our Patreon group, I would recommend the Patreon group over the YouTube membership, but I know some people don't use Patreon. It's totally cool. If you want to join our Patreon group, scan the QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. You can just go to the website as well and search Packer Fan Total Access. If you're one of the 3 tiers, you could choose the cheapest one. That's totally cool. It's like $2 or something. That gets you access to our chat where you've seen us tracking the interceptions and all that stuff. A lot of good conversation going on in there. And that will get you entered in the giveaways as well. The reason I recommend the Patreon group over the YouTube membership, guys, is because before, for just out of the blue, our channel got demonetized with no true explanation what happened. Everyone who was a member, that membership is now deactivated. Yep. And all of a sudden they weren't entered into the contest because we didn't know who was who or what. So if you lean toward the Patreon group, that can never happen in Patreon, if that makes sense. So again, if you're more comfortable like Jerry Weiss Corbley being a YouTube member, we appreciate the support just as much as Patreon. Just know that's why we created the Patreon group, because we felt like it screwed the listeners as opposed to screwing us. It was like, man, this is trash. So and then Bucks Raise Bolts here in the chat. We got a Bucks fan who's a member. Appreciate you, buddy, being a member for a month. And thanks for supporting the channel, even though you root for another team. Totally cool, man. Good luck to your Bucks, unless they play the Packers. And then Chris M with the super chat. Thank you so much, Chris, getting the kicker talk. Granted, again, I'm glad we did that too, Chris, because Brandon McManus is the second best kicker in the league as it sits right now. Pretty cool.
I love it. McMoney, baby. How about that 55-yarder, right? We talked about him being good inside of 50. He's hitting 55. I love it.
Yeah, and that's at Lambeau too, right? So
yeah. Put him in a dome. Let's see him work, right?
And you'll probably see and that might be the difference in this game. It's going to be fun. I can't wait. Another piece of the puzzle put in place. Can we hang with one of the best teams in the entire National Football League? We're going to find out tomorrow. road tested. We're going to be on the road for the playoffs, the entirety of the playoffs, for however long we last in the playoffs. It's going to be a great test on how this team can perform on the road. Tim, thank you for your time, bud. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Clay.
All right, guys, we'll see. We'll probably do a show tonight. If something comes up and we don't, just look for the link. If the link's created, we'll definitely be doing a show. I got to try to get my schedule organized. And, Tim, if you're available, we'd love to have you. If not, we completely understand. But everybody have a great day. We will potentially see you tonight. We'll definitely be seeing you multiple times tomorrow as it's game day, baby. Everybody have a great day.
And we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.